Hey everybody, welcome to Liberty in EDC. I'm your host, Daniel Sellers Norman, and we are here with Tracy Doyle, who's running for Cameron Park CSD. Thank you for coming in, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first off, I want to ask you a funner question. Oh shoot, I forgot. I told you what the question was, though. We cheated. Do you remember what the question was?
It was, what's something I wish people outside of the area would know about El Dorado County?
Okay, you're going to be the host now.
For me, I think we have just such an awesome sense of community and people care for each other. And I think we saw that so much during the Caldor fire and just people stepping up and just working together and helping each other and just the real sense of community and a small town vibe, even though our county's not really that small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we were just saying the other day how it's a little big county.
Yes.
Or a big little county.
Yeah.
Whichever way you want to say it. But yeah, El Dorado County is definitely like, I think a lot of people move up here because of the people, and
yes,
it is a really great community.
I grew up in New Orleans, and I found that I've lived in other parts of California, and when we moved up here, I noticed just how much friendlier people are than other areas of California, and kind of reminded me of that of the South where we're just kind of friendly and you don't know a stranger and
a little more hospitality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can't go down Main Street without like running into so many people, or the grocery store.
Yes.
So tell us in your own words, like, what is the role of someone on the CSD board? Like, what are their jobs? What do they do?
So the Cameron Park CSD board runs the Cameron Park Community Services District, which is they're in charge of fire and the Parks and Rec. And so the 5 directors they vote to make policies and make sure they're taking care of the fire protection and the parks and things like that.
Okay, great. And then how do you plan to like fulfill that role?
So I think right now we have some big issues with the budget and just productivity. And I think we need to work together as a board and with the staff and the community to see where we need improvement and make sure that the money's being spent in the right places and we're focusing on the right priorities.
So with that budget, I know that's kind of a big issue a lot of people have been talking about. Tell us what's going on with that.
So right now, the current fire protection contract is with CAL FIRE, and there's a shortfall with continuing that contract. So the districts looked at annexing with El Dorado Hills Fire or annexing with El Dorado County Fire. We have shortfalls when we look at both of those as well. So for
shortfalls in the budget, in funding.
Yes, so it's $1.5 million for if annexing with El Dorado Hills. There's a shortfall of $1.5 million, and then county it's $240,000. So regardless of what direction the board takes, we need to find ways to increase revenue so we can pay for things that we have, public safety, and make sure that we can pay for the fire department and keep our stations open.
Yeah. So the revenue, where does most revenue come now for the CSD?
So the revenue comes from taxes, from the property taxes, and also that's mainly where it comes from right now.
Okay.
So I think that we have a lot of good assets with the parks and the facilities, but they're not maximizing that use to bring in the most income we could with the assets that we have.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see maybe some income producing events and looking at, like, say, the Summer Spectacular, where that could be an excellent opportunity to have sponsors and vendors and turn that into something that's not cost prohibitive for citizens, but could be an income producing activity to help us fund the programs that we need to fund.
Yeah. What other ways can the CSD bring more revenues in?
I mean, I think that the main thing we could do is look at events and working with the different sports teams to make sure we don't lose those contracts.
Oh, yeah. So how does that work with the sports teams?
So the sports teams rent the facilities.
Oh, okay.
So like Prospector Soccer, and there's the swim team that practices there. They pay to use the facilities. So that is an income producing activity for the district.
Okay. And now, so the Cameron Park CSD, so obviously they're over Cameron Park. Is there any other like kind of adjacent areas near there that they're also over?
No. So the Cameron Park district, we have Cameron Park Service District, and then next door we have El Dorado Hills. There's some areas that are right next to us that are not part of El Dorado Hills or Cameron Park. So right now there's like the Marble Valley development and the Lime Rock Valley development. And those developments want to annex with El Dorado Hills. So one of my focuses right now is making sure the county looks at the impact that those developments, that all the developments have, town and country as well, what those impacts would be on Cameron Park, and making sure that Cameron Park gets compensated for the increase in parks use and all the other things, infrastructure that that we get counted in as part of the impact.
Yeah. So with being a CSD board member, like what influence do you have over those decisions?
So I think that's, I guess, for me to be determined.
Yeah.
Right now, the board has a general manager, and that person is meeting with the chief of El Dorado Hills Fire and working on a negotiation for fire service, annexing with them. So I think the board, we need leadership and help provide different directions sometimes, or maybe better direction to staff.
Okay. So you brought up fire there. So did they already switched their ambulance service, right? Is that correct?
We lost our medic.
Okay.
So we don't have a medic in Cameron Park right now.
Oh, okay.
The medic went to El Dorado Hills Fire Station or Fire Department.
How does that impact people in Cameron Park? If the medic's not there, does it just mean that it's going to take longer for an ambulance to get there?
Yeah, potentially. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So one of my goals is to bring back our medic and direct staff to make sure that that's part of the negotiations for whatever direction we take for the fire protection.
Okay. And then do they still have the fire stations there open, though?
Right now, yes. We have 88 and 89 both open. And so, we have to fight to keep those open. If a fire station closes, they don't reopen. So that's, to me, very important that we as a community make sure the directors and the general manager understand that we are not okay with closing a fire station.
Yeah. How do you think we can keep those open?
I think that, we have to insist that be part of the, that be part of the negotiations moving forward. Whatever we do and whoever we go with, we have to make sure that is included and it's understood that that's non-negotiable.
Awesome. And then, so you're passionate about making sure we got ambulance for Cameron Park, that those developments are going to be, fairly distributed, as far as usage and all that goes, from revenue that they're making, all that good stuff. How do you plan to pursue, what objectives do you want to pursue to fulfill those?
So as far as with the development, or
any one of those, what objectives do you think you can obtain?
What objectives do I think I can obtain? I think just making sure that we give staff the correct direction as a board, and make sure that the general manager's meeting with the appropriate people as far as for the developers, and the fire chief, that whole thing. I think that one of the main problems we have right now is a lack of transparency. So I recently discovered that we have no minutes being kept for the entire year.
Oh, wow.
So
nobody knows what's happening on the
nobody
board.
knows what's happening.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard, because as a candidate, I've wanted to look at the minutes and see what am I getting into, what's going to be on our plates. And it's kind of hard to do without minutes and seeing what they've done in the past year.
And is that something that you want to change?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the charter for minutes to be kept.
Oh,
and so
but they're not being kept.
not being kept.
Oh. Do you know why that is?
So the excuse that I'm hearing is that they don't have a clerk. I'm not sure when when that started.
Yeah.
So they're trying to hire a clerk right now. That's going to be a big undertaking to then go transcribe all the videos or the recordings to make minutes. But
oh, okay. so the meetings have been recorded. They just are like
they've been doing audio recordings, but no one's keeping minutes. There should be a secretary or clerk that keeps the minutes. Then the minutes should be on the agenda of the next meeting to approve the minutes. And so I'm not even seeing minutes being approved because there are no minutes being done.
Oh, okay.
I think that bothers me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely puts a hamper on accountability. Now, as far as the budget, because everyone knows they're in the red right now, is what's the cause for that? Like, are revenues down, or what's happening?
I think costs are rising and revenues not rising comparatively.
Oh, okay.
And then in the last several years, it seems like they've added a couple of jobs. So they've increased spending without having increases in revenue.
Oh, okay.
So that's something we need to look at and see, who's supposed to be doing what and what's needed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, make sure everything's getting used effectively.
And I think there's been a lot of just really poor decisions in fiscal mismanagement. So in the past year, they've spent about $64,000 on reports and independent contractors, so related to the fire stuff. So they've contracted with AP Triton, which is a company, I believe, out of Idaho, and spent, I want to say, about $60,000 for one of the contracts, which was then canceled.
Okay.
So they got a draft report that they won't release to the public, and then another report that I don't know if they got even a draft report for another $4,000. So about $64,000, and we can't even see what the money was spent on.
Oh, what are the reports for?
So one of them was the general, like a fire plan for the area, and the other was analyzing annexation with El Dorado Hills. So I think it's kind of concerning that there's this report for annexing with El Dorado Hills that we can't see.
Yeah.
It wasn't finalized, so it's not released to the public. And so what are they using besides the Don Ashton report, which they spent another $15,000 after the 60 plus $15,000 was paid to former county CAO Don Ashton to do a fire analysis report. So he looked at the three options, which is to continue contracting with CAL FIRE, annex with El Dorado County Fire, or annex with El Dorado Hills Fire. So basically, that's where I got the numbers for the $1.5 million shortfall. Excuse me.
Yeah.
For the annex with El Dorado Hills, and $244,000 shortfall for the annex with the county. So somehow, even with the $1.5 million shortfall, that was the direction that the board said, let's move towards annexing and working on those negotiations.
Okay. So are you saying you feel like they're making these decisions without a full picture? Oh, okay.
And especially without us having the full picture.
Oh, okay.
What would an annex look like?
Yeah.
What would the services look like? What are they asking for?
And that last report you were talking about, is that one available?
The Ashton report, yes, and I have that linked on my website.
Okay. So why did they, contract with these other reports and then, not follow through?
That's a good question. I've done a PRA request asking for all the emails between the general manager and AP Triton.
Yeah.
And they told me that they I think I did it at the end of August, and they told me they will have them done October 12th. So we're still waiting to see what's in those emails and see if there's anything we can glean from that. See what's going on.
Okay, so there's maybe some shoes to drop.
We'll see.
Wow. Okay, so
they also did another study they
yeah.
paid for and canceled without finalizing, and that was a water study.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of, I'd like to know why the water study was canceled as well.
Now, those ones that they canceled, do they pay the full thing for it and then cancel?
I
or?
don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, as far as the $64,000, they've spent that, and I don't think they're going to get their money back or our money back.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other, issues or anything you wanted to talk about?
I'm just really excited for the summer spectacular. I think that last year it seemed to kind of be an afterthought. We had a lot of new staff members. Only one person on the staff had worked on that event before. Seemed like they waited till about 2 weeks before the event to start planning. And something like that, like we should be planning the day after the last one.
Yeah.
And seeking sponsors and vendors and making sure that we can do it in a way that's cost effective for the district and for people to be able to attend. So in previous years, it was pretty reasonable for people to go and take their kids. And this year they charged $20 a person starting at 3 years old. And that seemed like a ridiculous thing.
Oh, wow.
So I think just better planning. And so I've been a stay-at-home mom for years, and I started my own business about 10 years ago. But for most of my 22-year-old's life, I was a stay-at-home mom, and we lived on one income. So I'm pretty good at making sure how are you going to do this? What's a need and what's a want, right? And looking at the budget. And in terms of supplementing our income, at times I would do different projects. So I worked on the California Candy Festival. Which was at the Jelly Belly factory, and it was for a nonprofit over in Fairfield. And so with that, I did marketing, vendor acquisition, sponsor acquisition, worked with a guy who was like second in command for Bill Graham for years. So I learned a lot on those projects, and I want to see what I could do to help make our events better, make our summer spectacular better. And that's one of my big things that I'd like to bring to the table. For
those who don't know, tell us what the Summer Spectacular is.
So the Summer Spectacular has been going on for years. I couldn't tell you the first year, but years. And it was actually an event that I came up to go to years before we bought a house up here. And it was one of the things that made me think, oh, I would like to live up here. That, small county feel, right? Small town feel. And so it's a fireworks event at the Cameron Park Lake. And they have the fireworks over the lake, and they'll bring in some food trucks, and people come and bring their blankets and watch the fireworks, and they have bands. So it's a super fun community building event.
Yeah. And that's usually around the 4th?
It's usually around the 4th. I think it's usually the week before.
The week before,
or weekend before, yeah.
Very cool.
And we can see them from our backyard, so that was one of the reasons why we bought our house. My husband's like, oh, yeah, definitely, right here.
Yeah, I remember going to friends' places down there in the past to go see the fireworks and stuff. And then I might have asked you this already, but why do you want to run? So I have a political science degree, but from LSU, and right after I graduated from high school, I worked at the Capitol in Louisiana and decided I wanted nothing to do with politics. I was very happy being a housewife, doing my home business, homeschooling my kids, baking bread, doing my garden. But then about 4 years ago, I didn't like what I was seeing in terms of the government, and got involved and started paying attention with the county level and attending meetings on the Zoom, and really just paying attention to the contracts, how they're spending our money, et cetera. And would ask other people to run, like, hey, hey, Daniel, why don't you run?
And I felt like I've become an accidental leader in the community. And as a leader, I can't keep asking other people to do something I won't do. So I decided it's time for me to serve my neighbors in this capacity.
Yeah.
And to try to keep this a special place to live for my kids.
Now, tell me, why should people vote for you? Like, what sets you apart from the other candidates?
I think that I will do the work that needs to be done and say the things that other people won't say. And I'll demand accountability, integrity, and transparency throughout everything.
Great. And now, if someone wants to get involved in your campaign or learn more about you, where can they go?
So people can go to my website. It's Tracy for CPCSD.com.
Okay.
And I'll also be at the League of Women Voters Forum on October 9th at the CPCSD at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. And they're going to be putting that online too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And then, is there anything else you want to add before we close out?
Just thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming in. And this has been Liberty and EDC. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys next time. Look for more political interviews coming out here. And you can find us on Foothill 7 TV and YouTube and social media.